Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we are looking at something literally out of a nightmare, but it's completely documented in police archives. We're talking about a fully verified case where a completely abandoned house, no electricity, no phones, literally nothing, somehow managed to repeatedly dial 911. Let's just jump right into the evidence and see exactly how an empty building cries for help. So picture this. It's exactly 2:17 a.m. on a really rough night. Heavy rain, thunder, wind howling, the whole shebang. A 911 operator gets a call and, at first she figures it's just a late night pocket dial. But the audio profile is instantly weird. Instead of background noise or panic, there's just this incredibly heavy silence. And then she hears wood slowly creaking, like someone is carefully taking step after step. And that's followed by a soft, rhythmic static, but honestly sounds exactly like a human trying to breathe quietly. Naturally, the operator leans in and says, 911, what's your emergency? But she gets absolutely nothing back, just that creaking and the static. Now, normally, an accidental dial drops pretty fast, right? But this one stays connected. She asks again, getting pretty uncomfortable at this point, and then, suddenly, without any warning, the line just abruptly drops into total dead air. Right, so the emergency system instantly traces that dropped call. But when the address pops up on the dispatcher's screen, it comes with a massive red flag. The call traces back to a small, isolated house on the edge of the city. But here's the crazy part. Municipal records show this exact property has been officially designated as completely abandoned for years. No legal occupants, no active utilities whatsoever. Yet the system perfectly verified that the emergency call originated from inside it. So dispatch quickly sends police over, figuring, hey, maybe it's a trespasser or someone squatting. But when officers pull up in the pouring rain, they don't find a squatter. They find a place completely forgotten by time. Dead grass, broken fences, violently swaying trees, and zero lights. They get no answer at the front door, obviously, so they head around to the side, where they find a door just hanging partially open on these heavily rusted hinges. The second they step through that rusted side door, the vibe completely shifts. The air inside is freezing and incredibly stale, like it hasn't moved in years. Sweeping their flashlights around the darkness, they see thick dust covering absolutely everything. Spiderwebs hanging everywhere. No appliances in the kitchen, not a single piece of furniture in the living room. Just echoing, completely empty rooms stretching from wall to wall. But here is where things get super weird. Even though it's totally gutted, the officers swear the house actually feels occupied. Like someone had literally vanished a split second before they walked in. A few interior doors are cracked open, the thick dust actually looks recently disturbed in certain spots, and there are these faint, weird marks on the floor that look kind of like footprints. But when they look closer, the prints are completely inconsistent. They just don't match anyone who should logically be there. And this right here is the absolute core impossibility of this explainer. The officers checked every single inch of this place, upstairs, closets, the basement, and found zero people, zero animals, and absolutely no devices capable of making a phone call. But the digital evidence from the 911 system was completely locked in. A live call was logged, the duration was tracked, and the signal data was verified to that exact address. The physical reality just completely defied the digital data. After about an hour of searching an entirely empty house, the confused officers are scratching their heads, getting ready to leave. But right as they're heading out, dispatch radios back in a total panic. A second emergency call is coming through from that exact address right at that very moment. And this time, the operator isn't just hearing static. Through all the noise, she hears this incredibly faint, broken whisper, just repeating two words, "Help me." Obviously, the officers rush back inside, thinking there's no way they missed someone. But again, total silence, completely empty. Since this second call was a bit longer and clearer, they actually sent the recordings over to forensics. And the experts basically came up with three heavily debated theories. Maybe it was just wind distortion echoing through dead wiring. Or maybe some freak instance of distant radio interference. Or, and this is the wild one some experts leaned toward, was it actually human speech being filtered through some sort of unknown acoustic barrier? All right, let's look at the next piece of this puzzle, the missing woman and the cold case. So investigators start digging into the history of the property, and they uncover a pretty dark secret. Years ago, a woman living in that exact house vanished without a trace. No body was ever recovered, no suspect was ever found. The official case went ice cold, but the neighborhood rumor mill, that stayed hot. Way before these 911 calls, neighbors swore strange things were happening over there. We're talking footsteps pacing in empty hallways, doors creaking open on their own, even faint lights glowing in windows of a house with no power. But until the 911 calls, everyone just wrote them off as unproven stories. Determined to finally get to the bottom of this terrifying mystery, investigators decided to go all out over the next few days. I mean, they ran massive, exhaustive, high-tech sweeps of the property, leaving literally no logical stone unturned. They brought in technical scanners looking for hidden cell phones or bugging devices. They used thermal imaging cameras to look for body heat behind walls. They even did full structural checks to see if there were secret rooms or underground tunnels. And after all that advanced tech and days of searching, you know what they found? Zero. Exactly 0 hidden people, 0 electronic communication devices, and 0 secret tunnels. There was absolutely nothing in the physical environment that explained how those emergency calls were being generated. But here's the thing you really have to take away from this. Even with 0 physical evidence, the emergency network logs definitively proved the events were real. These calls weren't just a hallucination by the operator. They were routed through official, authentic emergency networks. The timestamps were perfectly intact and verified in the official system. The calls actually happened, they just had absolutely no physical origin. And then we get to the really terrifying part, the escalation. Call 1 gave us silence and creaking wood. Call 2 brought a whispered plea for help. But the third and final call, it escalated drastically. The operator heard a very clear sequence of sounds. Footsteps moving slowly but directly right up to the phone receiver, followed by a heavy pause, and then a soft, close exhale, almost like someone was standing right up against the mouthpiece. Right after that soft exhale on the third call, a voice actually spoke. It was slightly stronger and clearer this time, and it delivered one final, chilling message. It just said, "I'm still here." And immediately after those words, the line went totally dead. No further calls ever came from the house after that stormy night. And when officers went back one last time, it was just the same old dust and silence. Over the years, experts have desperately tried to put logic to the impossible. But as you can see on this slide, every major theory has a pretty fatal flaw. Say it was a trespasser. Well, they'd have to magically escape without a trace multiple times in a matter of minutes while cops were right there. What about a telecom routing error? Sure, glitches happen, but that completely fails to explain the highly specific, interactive audio they recorded. And the idea that it was just stressed night shift workers hallucinating? Totally debunked by the physical forensic audio recordings. Nothing actually fits all the evidence. So today, this case just sits there, an incredibly rare, unsolved anomaly lingering in police archives. The decaying house is still out there on the edge of the city, slowly rotting away in silence. But I will say, anyone who walks past that place at night says they get this incredibly heavy, unusual discomfort, a lingering sense that the building itself is listening to them. It's the kind of vibe that definitely makes you walk just a little bit faster when you go by. Which brings us to the end of our explainer, and leaves us with one pretty major unsettling question to chew on. How exactly does a totally abandoned structure with no power and absolutely no devices inside repeatedly manage to reach out and call for help? Is it at all possible that those logged, verified calls weren't some massive technical glitch, but rather a desperate message from something refusing to be forgotten? Something we just haven't managed to understand yet? Anyway, thanks for diving into this bizarre mystery with me. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you in the next explainer.